now. We're good to go.
Okay, well, let's get started here. Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon Peterson, and I'm the assistant principal at West Oak Middle School. Thank you guys for joining us either today or hopefully you're listening to this as we are going to be linking this to our website and then also putting it out in our principals newsletters. But I'm very excited to have to be able to offer this parent university presentation. It's something that I know has been near and dear to my heart because I've seen this these issues come up as a dean of students in my past practice. So we have a lot of really good information for you guys that can help keep you safe, help keep your technology safe, and then most importantly, help keep our children safe as well. So our subject for tonight is cybersecurity best practices and social media awareness. We have two speakers with us today. First of all, we have our own District 76 Director for Technology and Communications, Eric Hansen. So thank you, Eric, for joining us. And then also the Lake County Police Department's Sheriff Deputy Francis Foy, too, is going to give us just a lot of good information on how to protect our technology, but also to keep our kids safe, from online predators, that kind of thing. So just some very important, very serious topic, and we just can't wait to get into it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hansen. Mr. Hansen is going to present in English, and then we're going to flip it over, and Miss Daisy Carrera is going to help us translate in Spanish for each slide. Okay, right. Eric, you ready?
I am, absolutely. Let me share my screen, get the presentation going. All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's get past the first slide and let's talk a little bit about cybersecurity best practices. So the purpose of today is really to kind of talk about how not only how we train best practices now with our staff, but also to instill it with our families and with our students when it comes to best practices and what we expect in our professional lives and in our personal lives. And I always train this when I share this information with all of our staff and our community, that we have a personal life and we have a professional life. And when it comes to cybersecurity best practices, they're all one and the same. So I hope I share a few resources and tips today that will be beneficial for you and something to reflect on to strengthen your and be safe when it comes to your technology in the world of cybersecurity.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Daisy. I apologize.
Esta es la presentación sobre las mejores prácticas de ciberseguridad. Este es el director de comunicación y tecnología de nuestro distrito. El propósito, él quiere darle unas urgencias y recursos para la vida de ustedes profesionalmente y personalmente, para fomentar el conocimiento de tecnología y cómo ser seguros de nuevo en la vida personal y profesional.
Awesome. All right, and one of the first things I like to share with everybody when it comes to this is the purpose of social engineering. What is social engineering? So essentially what it is this art of manipulating people in a way to give up confidential information. It comes in many different formats, but essentially I'm using like the terminology of criminals. People that utilize and try to social engineer people are trying to obtain, put you in a precarious spot where you are not thinking. It comes at a interesting time and it comes in different formats to give up information such as your password or very important information. This is bank information, but it could be anything, any sort of indicator, any sort of personal identifiable information that can be used to get into any sort of accounts and go from there. In addition to that, it may not be something that you're actually giving away. It may be something that you're clicking on or accidentally downloading, not on purpose, but just that's the purpose of social engineering, is to get you into a spot where it almost feels like a coincidence where you're receiving an email or a call or a text or clicking on a link where it seems to be like it puts you in that position, but you may be giving away information or accidentally downloading something onto your device that's causing that's spying on your information, collecting information, using it against you. And today, my objective here is to talk about giving an example of what that looks like and how to combat that. As I mentioned before, it comes in many different formats. Email, we hear email phishing all the time. Phone calls, robocalls are there for a reason, and that's one of the areas where an area of social engineering. text messages, that happens quite often, clicking on links in emails or clicking on links that are malicious on unsecure websites, and even plugging in a USB like a found USB drive into your computer, or different ways that that are unsafe. And it's a way that that I want to share about social engineering. So I'm going to go a little bit more into that, but I'm going to go into the translated slide here.
Les voy a dar un resumen, pero voy a hablar sobre los temas importantes que acaba de hablar el señor Hansen. ¿Qué es la ingeniería social? Es el arte de manipular a las personas para que entreguen información confidencial. Cuando se ataca a esas personas, son delincuentes que intentan engañarlos para que les den sus contraseñas, información bancaria, acceder su computadora para instalar diferentes plataformas que son maliciosos en secretos, y lo hacen por correo electrónico, hacerle clic en enlaces, llamadas por teléfonos o por mensajes de texto, y puede pasar en diferentes tiempos cuando no lo están expectando.
Awesome. All right. So possible attacks, and I want to preface this before I talk about this. I've been in presentations before, even as like a first-time teacher being shared, and I feel like as an audience member, when you look at this, you're thinking you're concerned about almost to scare you into all this. The world is like this. My overall goal today is not to do that. It's not to, and for when I talk to the staff, is not a gotcha moment. The overall understanding is to be educated, to be aware of what is there, and to just take a moment to step back when it comes to anything that you receive, whether it's a phishing email or interesting text or something that comes out of nowhere. So not to scare, but just to be educated. And I want to preface that a little bit. How and what the formats that social engineering generally comes in is, as I mentioned before, a phishing email. That's just a text. They call it smishing, SMS, phishing. So you can receive a random text. If you have not received those before, you're very lucky, but that does happen quite often, where you get a random text out of nowhere, and then it's coercing you into trying to click on something leading down a path that may be a suspicious link. Clicking on a link that you're not unsure of in an email or a text, receiving an email that you're unsure of, and downloading a file from a unsecured computer or website. And then, spoof logging in as well. Sometimes you might receive a communication from, whether in an email or text, and the spoof means like it looks like the same email address of a person but if you look closely, it's actually somebody that's trying to hide behind somebody else's email. So they call it a spoof. What happens? There's many different areas that could happen. Ransomware is a pretty common one. Essentially, it's just giving up. It's taking your personal data and essentially holding it hostage until you pay for that. That's a big cyber attack that happens across the world, and there's, I'm going to share different areas and how to combat that. You could also obtain, by clicking on a suspicious link or downloading a file, malware, a virus, or spyware. And essentially, it's this. These are just. It could be something that's installed on your device, and it's trolling your device, looking for, and it's corrupting it, or it's spying and watching all the clicks that you're doing to collect information.
El señor Hansen acaba de hablar de los ataques que les pueden pasar posiblemente, y no es para asustar a todos nuestros papás o personal que están atendiendo, sino es para educarlos, para que sepan de los posibles ataques que puedan pasar con su tecnología, que aquí hay la lista: la fraude de correo electrónico, fraude de texto, clics en enlaces sospechosos, que puede pasar cuando están usando sus computadoras, sus tabletas, descargando archivos, correos electrónicos o respuestas de formas. Y también otro ataque posible es fingir iniciando una sesión. Y luego en la mano derecha puede ver diferentes palabras y sus definiciones. Ransomware es la amenaza con publicar los datos personales de la víctima o bloquear el acceso a ellos, a menos que se pague un rescate o por otra cosa. Malware es un software intrusivo diseñado para dañar y destruir las computadoras y sistemas informáticas. Y luego el virus es un tipo de programa informático que, cuando se ejecuta, se replica como sí mismo, modificando los programas, pero se están fijando en cómo están navegando sus aparatos. Y luego spyware, que se instala en su computadora y comienza a monitorear de manera encubierta las cosas que están haciendo en línea sin el permiso de ustedes.
All right. So I want to provide you a phishing example. This is actually what we actually provide phishing simulations with our staff to simulate what you can experience. And this is something we can continuously practice in District 76, that because when it comes down to it, you could have all the best security in the world, but if you're not educated and you don't have practice and you don't have, when it comes to these, it doesn't really matter. So I'm giving an example of one we've used recently. So let's look at this. This looks like a typical email. It says from DHL. I can receive a package from DHL. That makes sense. And then it says under the subject, undelivered package. Okay, so right away, what is that doing to you? You may not realize you have a package, or you're expecting a package and you have no idea what service it's coming from, right? That's pretty common. So right away, this is the concept of social engineering. It's putting you into a spot, making you rushing to click on something. Additionally, by looking at this, some information kind of written in 3 different texts, not in a sentence, I'm not really in a paragraph, it's just 3 different statements, and go online here, right? So when I look at this, this is something that you may receive in your inbox. So let's break it apart a little bit in different areas on how we can break apart and know why this may be a phishing email. All right. So the first thing is domain spoofing, and that just means like at whatever.com. So one thing is the subject is the from is DHL. So that's interesting. But, and this is at DHL account.com. How are you going to know if that's actually a real person, an automated thing? So we could take an account that might look normal on the surface, but that is a potential domain spoofing, but that's not really going to be helpful for you. So let's break this down even more. Ambiguous salutation, right? So when somebody is addressing you, most of the time they should know your name, right? They should know whom you are because they're contacting that customer, or it could be in a different situation. But for this, it's just saying hello. Not enough for us to say that that is a fish, right? Not that we know that's not enough for us to tell. So let's break it down a little bit more. All right, so by looking at this last sentence saying, please go online and submit your correct address so we can deliver your package today. Right away, that's an indicator. If I look at that sentence and taking a step back and reflecting for a moment, I would hope that the company that is sending you packages, you order something and send it to you, should know your address, right? Should know that information. So right then and there, I'm seeing 3 things that are interesting. I'm not exactly sure if that's the case. It's just saying hello. It's not addressing me as a person, and it's trying to force me into clicking on something to give me my address, which is very interesting because I promise you, buying something from Amazon or wherever online, they do know your address. So asking you to click on something to type your address, and it's very interesting. So that should be a huge red flag at that point. And last but not least, and this is kind of a tip I'm going to share for later, is that in any email that you receive, especially on a computer, I want you to not click the link, but you mouse over it. So put your mouse over the pointer over the button or link and do not click. When you hover over it, you will see pop up on your screen. Depends on if you use Gmail or something else, but it should pop up somewhere on your screen what the link address is. And if it doesn't indicate anything about the company, DHL is not in that URL. I'm not showing it here, but if it didn't reference it and it's just a long string of text, that's a big long URL, huge indicator that might be that do not click on that because it's not indicating where it's actually coming from. If it's not referencing the company, there's a good chance that it's pointing you to a different direction.
So, ejemplos de falsificación son correos electrónicos, y algo que hace el señor Hansen y el departamento de tecnología es hace estos ejemplos con todo el personal para ver si caemos nosotros también y hacemos clic en estos enlaces. Y hay veces que voy a decir que sí nos ha pasado. Personalmente a mí me ha pasado gracias al departamento de tecnología, pero por eso estamos aprendiendo todos. Pero unos ejemplos de falsificación aquí puede ver es que están fingiendo un nombre de correo electrónico electrónico, el saludo, si están esperando una orden de, por ejemplo, de Amazon o cualquier sitio o compañía que ordenan, nada más, ellos deben de saber el nombre de ustedes, so fíjense en cómo saludan, y luego si los hacen forzar hacer un clic en un enlace también es típicamente una señal de que el correo electrónico no es algo auténtico o de veras, perdón, y luego abajo si mira donde dice Go Online Here, puede colocar el cursor sobre el enlace, no tanto hacer el clic, pero nada más colocarlo arriba, y busca una referencia al sitio web de la empresa o de la organización. Pero normalmente cuando hace clic en esos enlaces los lleva al otro, al lugar donde no debe de estar haciendo clic, y de nuevo pero esos son ejemplos de falsificación que pueden ver cuando les mandan correos electrónicos.
All right. So best practices with a phishing attack, something like we just looked at a second ago. I'm just going to focus on my do's for a moment, right? What you should do. First off, question something that's out of the ordinary, an email or text. Why am I receiving that? Why am I receiving, like, for instance, that email, that simulation, I shared that example. Why would, if I'm receiving that my professional account, my work account, why am I receiving a delivery thing going to my work account, right? It doesn't make any sense. But even if it went to your personal, are you expecting something that's coming in? In the world we live in now, we're constantly purchasing things online, so it's so instantaneous and expected. So this could insert at any time, and quite frankly, it's not targeted towards you. It's just phishing and hoping somebody is caught. So if you receive an email or text, question it. Don't react. Reacting is bad. That's the whole purpose of social engineering, is to react to you right away, right? Look for questionable areas. Like I mentioned in the previous example, look for those different areas, add them up a little bit, take a moment before you do that. If you're uncertain about an email that you receive, don't reply to that email. There's no reason to. If I'm receiving an email from DHL right there, and I'm not expecting a package, I'm not going to use that email and reply to it. I am going to contact DHL and see if I have a package or anything like that. Because essentially I'm taking that email completely out of the game. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm not expecting anything and I contact them, it's probably going to indicate that is a phish email. It's trying to get you to click on a link and either inject something onto your computer, or it might take you down to another path to type in some information and collect more information on you, essentially being caught as phishing, essentially. As I mentioned, taking a moment and reflect on the situation. Ask a friend or family member, does this look interesting? When we practice this social engineering simulations, people ask. I truthfully appreciate when somebody asks me, because it's very important to ask. If you see something, you say something, and that definitely happens when it comes to this as well. And like I said before, huge pro tip, if you have a link for an email you're not sure, and even if it is like a legitimate one, hover over it, see what it looks like. It will probably say something that indicates what it's from, and that will be very beneficial for you. The other part, when it comes to don'ts, my don'ts are never click on a suspicious link, whether it's on a website, an email, a text. If you're not sure where it's coming from, don't click on it. Hover over the text. If you see that it shows where it's supposed to be going to, it should be fine. Or if you're expecting something, it should be fine. Last thing I want people to do is not read their emails. That's kind of crazy. But what I want people to do is, if you're not expecting something, if something comes out of nowhere, if it looks suspicious, go with your gut on that one. Never download a suspicious email file. You get a file that's saying something that's trying to convince you into doing something, and it says, please click on download this. That's something you want to pay attention to as well. Huge plus on this one. Never click on a link and type in your account credentials. Right? When we provide these, I've observed this before, where somebody clicks on something saying, click on this link for this PDF of whatever the case may be. And then it asks you to type in your email address and password. Well, why are you doing that? There's no reason to. In the Google Workspace, when people utilize that, when you click on it, it should automatically have you pre-logged in to go into something. It's not going to ask you to fill out this information and set aside your email or that. A lot of times people they're asking, they want you to put that credentials in. Essentially, that's gathering information on you to use it against you. So that's just another thing just to pay attention to. Sometimes you will receive, I mean, There are times you'll receive an email that's legitimate and they'll click you on something and go to an area where you're expected to fill something out. But you should know and be able to look at the email, determine that it feels comfortable and go for it, right? And be able to type in the information. But I always take a moment to reflect and make sure that that email is not suspicious. And like I said here, never respond to suspicious email. You receive an email that's suspicious, the objective is to collect information or to get you to reply to them. And then it continues on. So we want to make sure that those are our do's and don'ts.
De mejores prácticas, de nuevo el ataque falso, las cosas que hacer y que no hacer. De nuevo les voy a dar un resumen sobre la información importante que acaba de hablar el señor Hansen. Cuestiona cualquier correo electrónico que sea fuera de lo común. Un ejemplo que dio es, si no están expectando que llegue una orden, entonces no les van a andar mandando un correo electrónico. Estas son cosas para ejecutar información y agarrar información de sus computadoras o tabletas, o para que ustedes llenen información personal de ustedes también. Busque áreas cuestionables. Si no están seguros, nunca respondan. Pueden ir a preguntarle a otra persona, hey, esto parece curioso, porque son cosas que yo también personalmente he hecho cuando llegan esos correos electrónicos que dicen que tengo que renovar, por ejemplo, una nueva suscripción que a lo mejor no tengo. Esas son cosas sospechosas que acaba de decir también el señor Hansen, que puedes preguntarle a otra persona, y de nuevo tomar un momento para reflexionar sobre la situación. Si hay un enlace o botón, coloque el cursor arriba de nuevo para ver el enlace. Y aquí en la mano derecha puede ver las cosas de no hacer, nunca hacer clic en un enlace sospechoso, nunca descargue un archivo de correo electrónico sospechoso, nunca ingrese las credenciales de la cuenta de un correo electrónico sospechoso. De nuevo, nunca ponga su información en un lugar donde no están esperando que estén contactados de esa compañía o de esa empresa, y nunca responda a un correo electrónico sospechoso tampoco.
Awesome. All right. And then there's one other area I just want to share when it comes to password and devices, because this is when it comes to your device, whether a cell phone or computer or tablet, and the passwords we use on our accounts, this is a good way to insulate yourself. All right. So aside from like when you receive something that is a social engineered email or text or communication or what have you, there's ways that we need to make sure that our devices and our passwords are secure. And I'm just going to give a few tips that will be beneficial and a few resources additionally.
Ahora vamos a hablar sobre contraseñas y los dispositivos o sus tecnologías que usan. Les vamos a dar unos ejemplos de cosas que hacer y no hacer con sus tecnologías que tienen.
All right. And it's not, unfortunately, I don't have an example, but these are my do's and don'ts when it comes to account passwords in our devices. So our do's. If you're not familiar with this, this is a huge safeguard, which is called, they have different phrases for it. It's called two-factor verification. Sometimes it's called two-step verification, and sometimes it's called multi-factor verification. Essentially, you're tying whether your cell phone or a different type of device to be a second form of verification to your account. So whether it's your email account or it's a account for something important like your banking information, so on and so forth. Essentially what it's doing is that when I log in on a device that I don't typically log in at, it's going to send you to whether it's a text message or you're using an authenticator application, or it goes right to your email and it just authenticates. It goes to your device, not your computer, it goes to your device, to the secondary device you have, to verify that is you. That's a huge must. In our school district, it is expected. It's actually not like your choice. Everybody's expected to have that on their account. It's very simple. It's a one-time you add, and then if you ever go on to a different computer or a different device, it's going to ask to verify that is you. It's a nice safeguard. I think it's not 100% perfect, but it definitely is a better layer of protection for your accounts. I highly recommend that you put it on things that are very important, like your email accounts, your banking accounts, anything that provides that, it gives you a second layer of protection. Change your passwords at least once a year. I know that I quite frankly, I think I share that quite often with people. I see the eye roll, which is because no one ever wants to change their password. I promise you, no one does, and nor do I. But keeping the same password, unfortunately, is not best practice. And when you keep the same password, unfortunately, there are these things called data breaches that happen quite often. And you may have not been hacked or anything, but your email account may have been leaked amongst like millions of other people, and for some sort of company, you may not be aware of it, and that password might be obsolete or it might be used in that. So it's a good practice at least once a year to change your passwords. Other people have shared some people religiously do this like 4 times a year. It all depends on your comfort level and your password strength. This third bullet, password length, is very important. Best practice in the past was using different characters, different numbers, different that, and some web accounts will require you to use an uppercase, a lowercase number, a symbol, and that's great. Length is always important. The longer it is, the harder it is to guess. And as I mentioned before, no one targets a specific person. What they're doing is they're going to see what's easy to break. And if it doesn't, they'll move on to somebody else. But password length is extremely important. And I'll share a resource later at the end of this presentation of there are different websites you can actually type your password. Please don't, but just type in different things and see how long it will tell you. It'll take somebody to break your password. Obviously, this is one we share with our students, and it goes with our adults as well. Never share your passwords with anybody. That's a given. If you notice that your password was part of, say, a data breach, or somebody you've got an email or notification saying that somebody's trying to log into your account, right then and there, you're not responding to that. What you're doing is you're changing your password right away, because clearly it has been, when people use the term hacked, but it has been, discovered and been trying to use. So if you have that second factor verification, that's a good indicator, because that means somebody can't get into your account. However, your password now is obsolete and you got to change it. Always have an endpoint protection or antivirus running. So every computer should have something that is an antivirus or malware protection that's on there. This gives you a good, it keeps everything up to date and lets you know if something has been, inflicted onto your computer. And as mentioned, whether it's your cell phone or your computer, always keep your security or your devices up to date. I know that little red icon, if you have an iPhone or Android or whatever, when it lets you know that there's an update, sometimes it's not something fancy or something really nice we want on our phones, but most of the time it's like a security patch because something needed to be addressed, and that's the reason why. And so a lot of times with that, you want to make sure that's there to keep you safe. My don'ts are very simple. Don't use obvious passwords. Please never use your name. Just use anything that indicates it's very obvious to guess at. So anything affiliated with your name, anything affiliated with your children, anything affiliated with your pets, like your street address, that kind of stuff. Those are all personal. Those are information that can be easily guessed at, right? So please never use a password that references anything about you personally, because those are things that are very, very easy to guess at. Don't, and it's kind of a double negative here, but you want to always change your password. Don't never change your password, right? So leaving your password status quo, that's really rolling the dice. It really is. And keeping the same password for everything is awful practice. You never want to use the same password. I hope I'm not offending anybody if they still do this. It's just something that you should look at. Because if I use the same password for my banking information as my email account, right? And say I don't use two-factor and somebody hacked my email, guess what? They got my bank password too. So you definitely want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to differentiate how you're using it. Come up with different mnemonic devices or different ways on how you want to create your passwords, but never have it associated with something personal or easy, like your name or anything that associates your family. Those are really easy to guess at. Never put your, like this picture here, please don't put your passwords on login stickies all over your computer. It's clearly obviously not a good practice. Unfortunately, I've seen that in a long time ago when I was a teacher. A few people have done that before. Not a good practice, and we always make sure that people do not do that. And then also never, with the don't category, never leave your device constantly not updated. because there's a reason for that. And that's there to make sure that ensure that your device and your accounts are safe and secure. And there's a reason why that exists.
Ok, de nuevo, cosas de hacer y no hacer que acaba de comunicar el señor Hansen. Use la verificación de 2 factores. Eso significa que si están, por ejemplo, si tienen su Chromebook o su laptop en casa, también les va a preguntar por que verifiquen su información por correo electrónico, algo que no, por ejemplo, puede usar su laptop, pero le va a preguntar también que verifique su información por teléfono, right? Pueden poner su número de teléfono y luego le mandan una contraseña a su teléfono y luego ya después puede verificar su información en su computadora. Cambiar sus contraseñas una vez al año. Nunca comparta sus contraseñas con nadie. Cambie la contraseña inmediatamente si descubre que alguien conoce los detalles de su cuenta. Siempre tenga la protección de punto final o antivirus en su computadora. Mantenga los sistemas actualizados y las actualizaciones de seguridad que estén disponibles en sus tabletas, en sus Chromebooks, en sus MacBooks, lo que sea, y cosas de no hacer, usar contraseñas que son obvias, que pueden ser de información personal que alguien puede adivinar, de nuevo, cosas de no hacer, que dejar la misma contraseña, que de nuevo que pueda ser algo fácil que alguien la pueda adivinar, usar la misma contraseña para diferentes cuentas que tenga, guarde su nombre de contraseña de usuario y las contraseñas nunca guarde sus nombres en lugares así. Puede ver la foto ahí, cuando dijo el señor Hansen que cuando era maestro, miró muchas personas que tenían sus contraseñas en pedazos de papeles arriba de sus computadoras. Son cosas obvias y son cosas que alguien puede encontrar fácilmente. Y de nuevo, nada más acuérdese de actualizar su tecnología para que estén actualizados con actualizaciones de software, para mantenerlos con los sistemas más actualizados.
All right. So I'm going to leave some of these resources here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to post this on our parent university site once this is completed and I upload the video. But there are a few websites that kind of, I didn't want to put a billion on here, but there are a few that I thought would be beneficial to take a look at. One explains what social engineering is in tips. The other one is called Have I Been Pwned? It's kind of an interesting website where you could put your email address and it'll say if your email was part of a data leak. What I would like to let everybody know is that at one point, everybody's email has been tied to something. It doesn't mean your email is unsecure or it's unsafe. It just essentially means that your email address was part of like a directory of millions and millions of emails. At one point, there was a data hack at one point. And it just lets you know that at the year that happened, if you change your password regularly, you're just fine. But if you haven't, it might be something to take a look at. I don't have it listed in here, but if you have an iPhone or even an Android phone, but I know from both perspectives, if you it's actually built into your iPhone. If you go into your settings, it'll actually tell you there's a password section, and it'll let you know if passwords have been part of those, and it'll let you know if you need to change them. Once again, this is to educate. It's definitely not to scare, and I don't want anybody to be concerned about that. This is the world we live in. It's just to be educated and just keep everything secure. The password strength link is really neat. Essentially, what's nice about that one is actually you can type whatever you want in. You can just smash the buttons, and it'll tell you how long it'll take for somebody to crack your password if they're trying to break into it. So that's actually a fun resource to even try and take a look at. And lastly, I blog post quite often, and this gives you an understanding of what two-step verification and why it exists. So I just have 4 resources built into this presentation. As I mentioned, on our parent university page, these live links will exist, and you could try them out, take a look at it, and just get a little bit more education on cybersecurity. Oh, pardon me. Daisy,
No.
there you go.
You're good. Awesome information. So, muchos 4 recursos importantes que acaba de compartir, y de nuevo estos van a estar disponibles para que ustedes puedan hacer clic en los enlaces de nuestro sitio web debajo de Universidad de Padres. Aquí puede ver información sobre ingeniería social, cuentas comprometidas, pero aquí puede ver, también puede hacerle clic y meter sus correos electrónicos. No necesariamente dice que por ahorita sus cuentas están, alguien las adivinó o algo, porque nos ha pasado a todos, es lo que acaba de compartir, pero el tercer recurso es seguridad de contraseñas, y aquí es donde puede dar pruebas, quiero usar esta contraseña, y les da una idea de contraseñas seguras, largas, que pueden usar. Y de nuevo, al mero abajo, esto es personalmente del señor Hansen, verificación de 2 pasos y razones, y explica esa verificación de 2 pasos que hablamos en una de las páginas anteriores. Y de nuevo, estos recursos van a estar disponibles para que ustedes puedan hacer clic en los links, en los enlaces, y puedan ver la información.
All right, thank you. And without further ado, I'm just going to switch over to cyber safety, and Deputy Foy, after you.
Cool, thank you. So again, my name is Francis Foy. I'm a deputy with the Lake County Sheriff's Office. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and share some cyber safety tips. My goal, again, is not to scare anybody as well, but just show you some of the things we usually deal with when it comes to schools and some of the cyber safety issues we've encountered. So I'm assigned to our community school resource team. So in Lake County, the sheriff's office is responsible for 50 different schools. So our team is our community school resource team, and we kind of liaise with them. We have full-time school resource officers. I've been in law enforcement for over 22 years now, but one of my main jobs is liaisoning with schools. So we do I'm an ALICE instructor, which is teaching school staff, some of the safety with active threats that happens in schools. An evidence technician, which kind of helps in this presentation talk about some of the ways we collect evidence when we do our cyber crimes investigations. I am a school resource officer, a juvenile officer, so we interact with students all across the county and help parents and administrators kind of deal with regular problems that are being seen in schools. I was a detective in their cyber crimes unit, and I've investigated cases that involved people who wanted to take advantage of our students and our young ones. I've also, worked, because cyber crimes really affects most of our investigations now with cell phones, computers, and laptops. It was a very encompassing assignment.
Aquí puede ver las cosas que el oficial acaba de hablar sobre que él ha experimentado. Él es parte del equipo de recursos escolares comunitarios, tiene 22 años en la aplicación de ley, es un instructor de ALICE, que es algo que ayuda de situaciones de cómo seguir las situaciones seguras si algo haya de pasar en las escuelas. Era técnico de evidencia, oficial de recursos escolares, y es ex detectivo de crímenes cibernéticos. Ha experimentado con muchas de estas situaciones.
So I'm lucky enough to speak to lots of different people on various topics because of my job. But one of the things I really, really take a passion for is cyber safety. Whether it's someone older being taken advantage of through a scam, or someone a little younger who is a little naive on the internet and doesn't realize maybe what their actions are doing and how it can affect them later on. So, we all have devices. Sitting in front of you right now, you're either on a phone or a computer of some sort. Our students, a lot of them are issued tablets, Chromebooks, MacBooks, whatever, right? So most devices now, all have cameras on them. It's very rare to not have a camera, and most of our cell phones have 2 cameras, right? One in front, one in back. I have two phones, one work phone, a personal phone. In a lot of presentations I do, I talk to people that in front of me right now is 3 cameras. So they're all capable of providing information out onto the internet, good, bad, or indifferent. So it's something that people just need to be aware of to show that we need to be safe when we're interacting with people online.
Un resumen sobre lo que acaba de hablar es, vamos a hablar sobre dispositivos o tecnología en línea. Todos tenemos acceso a tecnología, lo estamos haciendo ahorita, estén en sus teléfonos o en sus tabletas, en sus computadoras, en sus casas, pero la pasión de él es la seguridad cibernética, especialmente para jóvenes que a lo mejor luego no saben las cosas que están publicando o la información que están comunicando y cómo les puede afectar en sus futuros. De nuevo, también mucha de la tecnología que vemos ahora tienen cámaras, pueden tener 2 cámaras, una enfrente y una atrás, donde es más posible de ver más información o de agarrar más información.
So obviously, when we go online, there's a lot of different things we will do, and not everything online is dangerous, but it's definitely something we need to pay attention to and be aware of, right? Who are we talking to? Sometimes we're talking to friends, family. We do work online, right? Online ordering for things, and then again, strangers. So we can't be naive to think that our children aren't speaking to strangers online. It's very common, and it might just be harmless, speaking to other children across the country, whether it's on a gaming system, whether it's on some sort of project they're working on, whatever. But there are many tools out there that cause red flags, and we need to pay attention to what our kids are doing, because the bottom line is, and the whole goal of this is to know what our children are doing online. Okay, who they are talking to and what they're doing online. I'll get into a slide in just a second, but as parents, it's our responsibility, and I'm happy to educate as best as I can. And with this presentation or when I provide my information at the end, reach out to me if you have any questions about how we can accomplish some of these goals.
Okay, de nuevo un resumen con quién estamos hablando cuando estemos en línea. A veces pueden ser amigos, familiares, o cuando estamos ordenando cosas en línea, y también puede ser personas que no conocemos, pero y a veces también nuestros jóvenes están hablando con unas personas que a lo mejor no conocen. So, de nuevo, la pasión de él y lo que él tiene más experiencia es hablar sobre estas situaciones. También quiere dar su información, va a dar su información al último por si tengan preguntas.
So when you're talking to your kids, some of the things you need to pay attention to is who are they talking to? Okay, it's a process we call verification. So when I ask my kids, hey, so what'd you do today? Oh, I played a video game online. Oh, who'd you play with? Well, if they can tell me I played with so-and-so, great. Well, how do you know so-and-so? We're in school together, or we were in camp together. We went to some sort of event. Somehow they can say they're a real person, right? They may not know like a telephone number or where they live exactly, but they can give me a rough estimate. It's the same thing when we talk on social media. How many friends do you have on a friends list on some social media account, but you don't actually know them because you've never seen them in real life? How can we verify who they are? If we can't verify them in real life, then we should kind of be cautious about who we're talking to and what we're sharing, personal information, etc. So you may be able to say, oh, I know them from here, I know them from there, and that might be fine. But when I can say, well, we used to go to school together, now they live in Georgia, we still communicate online. Okay, at least you put a face to a name type of thing.
Ejemplos de verificación ejemplos de verificación que pueden hablar o preguntarle a sus hijos también es preguntarles con quién hablan, cuál es su nombre, cómo los conoces, en dónde viven, cuál es su número de teléfono. A lo mejor no les pueden dar toda esa información, pero pueden ustedes como padres o tutores tener casi un conocimiento de que la persona con quien ellos están hablando o jugando un juego de videos es una persona real, y al último cómo los conoces. So, estos son unos ejemplos de preguntas que les pueden hacer a sus hijos.
So why should we be concerned with online safety? Well, I can tell you one of the articles here an arrest that I made. So we're not in a bubble, and we're not, every street corner is not having someone dangerous lurking around it. But when we are putting ourselves out online or being approached by people online, similar to the scams that Mr. Hansen was talking about, it can be very dangerous for our children. So keying in on what they are doing online is the first step. Knowing passwords, knowing what sites they visit, knowing what they're doing and who they're talking to is all a part of it. If you allow them to have social media accounts, then they should tell you what those social media accounts are, how you can access them, how same thing with mobile devices. You should be able to get into any of those devices, because as a parent, you are responsible for them. They don't have the rights to keep you out of their social media sites. They should not be allowed to have anything secret. They shouldn't. It doesn't come down to trust. I have 2 children myself. Kids should not give us a reason not to trust them. But you got to be realistic in this world. Everything is starting to involve social media or some sort of electronic device online, right? And kids talk to each other, they discover things, and it's something that we need to be aware and figure out how we can kind of stay involved and learn from what they're doing.
Aquí pueden ver por qué debemos de preocuparnos por la seguridad en línea. Aquí tienen 4 ejemplos en la mano izquierda de diferentes personas que han tratado de solicitar información o conocer a jóvenes. Uno de los arrestos fue un arresto que él ayudó a detener también. Y de nuevo, por eso es importante de saber las contraseñas de sus hijos, con quién, preguntarles esas preguntas de con quién están hablando, con quién están jugando los videojuegos, si tienen las redes sociales, cuáles redes sociales tienen sus hijos o hijas, y luego de nuevo tener acceso a sus teléfonos celulares si necesita verlos. No es de decir que no les tenemos confianza a nuestros hijos, sino es tener esa confianza y para saber que ellos están comunicándose en las redes sociales y en una manera segura.
So a lot of adults will sometimes say to me that they know nothing about social media or being online. Their children are way more educated in using devices. And obviously with the last few years, especially, children have been doing a lot more online learning. Simple things that you can use to figure out what they're doing online is, for example, on their cell phones. You go into battery usage, see what applications your children are using, and paying attention to if it's something that you're not aware of. Simple search on the internet can tell you what an app does or what it's for, right? So some of the red flags that we also want to talk about. This isn't just for social media, playing video games. There's a lot of online games that children play. So when I talked earlier, I have 3 webcams sitting right in front of me in the form of cameras on devices. It's a red flag when someone tells you, hey, I want to talk to you, turn on your webcam, but I can't turn on mine. I don't have one. It's broken. Now, I'm not saying everybody has a web camera, but it should be a red flag that we should be aware of. It's very easy to get some sort of webcam and use it, and it's kind of part of the verification process, seeing that they're a real person, not just some blurry blob that you're talking to and sharing personal information. Moving to another chat platform, it's a very common thing we've seen, and it goes from adults down to children. If you're talking to someone online that's I'll air quote a friend, and they want to move you to another chat platform to make it a little more private, well, it's usually some way that they're going to try and take advantage of you. And it could be as simple as personal information, or children have sent pictures of themselves and videos of themselves doing anything of a sexual nature or something else inappropriate and sharing it. We as law enforcement and schools have dealt with a lot of issues with social media trends in the last 6 months. And it's just one stranger on social media telling a nation of students, try this. And we see it all the time, even with adults, repeating things that they see. you don't know who these people are, but we're in a day and age that we want to imitate or reproduce something that we've seen, right? And do it. So it's something that we need to make sure we pay attention to and, be aware of.
Thank you. Son unas señales sospechosas de nuevamente. Si hay diferentes aplicaciones en los teléfonos o tabletas de sus hijos, siempre puede hacer una búsqueda para ver cuál es esta aplicación, cuál es esta red social, para qué se usa, porque lo que hemos visto también, especialmente ahorita que los estudiantes están a remoto y usando estas tecnologías más seguidos, es que están repitiendo cosas que ven. Han visto casos, él acaba de comunicar que ha visto casos que a veces hay estudiantes que están haciendo cosas que son inapropiados, cosas sexuales que han visto que otras personas los hacen, so ellos también lo quieren hacer, y que otras personas lo están haciendo y le digan a los otros estudiantes, tú también lo puedes hacer esto. So de nuevo, son cosas, esas son unas señales sospechosas y cosas para que ustedes estén conscientes de lo que está pasando ahorita. Y no es para asustarlos, pero sino para educarlos a todos cosas que estamos viendo ahorita más seguidos.
So we should have conversations with our children about sharing information, whether it's pictures, messages, because we want to know who this will be shared with. When I talk about pictures, inappropriate pictures should not be shared. Pictures of them naked or partially naked should not be sent out on the internet, because anything sent out onto the internet is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to remove off the internet, right? Messages. Could messages be taken the wrong way? That either there's going to be self-harm or harm to others, or considered bullying, right? So as law enforcement, on a regular basis, we deal with messages that are put out onto social media and have to find out if there's any validity to these messages. And sometimes it's a joke, something that they saw online, thought would be funny. Maybe as an example, posting a picture of a BB gun that looks like a real weapon. Well, I'll tell you what, law enforcement in schools in this day and age, we take it very seriously, and we don't laugh at those types of things. So we have to look into it. But it's also something that can obviously affect your future down the road. So who will see this message, right? Who is it shared with? Who are your friends with today may not be your friend tomorrow. Who you're in a relationship with today may not be in a relationship with tomorrow. And you have no control about where that information goes once you hit that send button, right? So some things to think about. Would I share this with my family? If you're not comfortable sharing it with your grandmother or your father or a sibling or anything, you might want to reconsider. It might be too embarrassing for you to send out. And will this affect my future? And one of the next slides, I'll talk about that and some of the issues that have come up in the world where people have lost jobs that they really love because of things that were done in the past. You should always ask the question, is it illegal? If it's illegal, you definitely don't want to be doing it, and definitely don't want to be putting out on the internet. Okay. And is it inappropriate? So obviously there's trends out there that, and I'm not saying not to enjoy sitting and watching social media and flipping through videos or messages, because it is what we do in the current age, right? We all sit and watch some videos and see, hey, that's entertaining, and sometimes we try to reproduce it. But if it's inappropriate, our children should not be exposed to it, and we should not be, they should not be sending it out.
Thank you so much. So lo que acaba de hablar es compartiendo información. Y esos ejemplos son imágenes, mensajes, cosas de pensar con quién estamos compartiendo esta información. De nuevo, son cosas de compartir, cosas para preguntarte así a ustedes mismos o que le digan a sus hijos, ¿es algo que comportaría esto con mi familia? Si es algo que no es apropiado, a lo mejor no está bien que lo estén publicando en el internet. Esto afectará a mi futuro. Lo que hemos visto también es que son imágenes que en el pasado que han hecho, que están publicados en las redes sociales, que luego personas también han perdido sus trabajos. Es ilegal. Si es algo ilegal que no deben de estar haciendo, principalmente no es algo que cosas ilegales que los deben de estar publicando también en el internet o en las redes sociales. Y de nuevo preguntarse si es algo inapropiado. Si es algo inapropiado, no lo debe de estar publicando también en el internet o en redes sociales.
So as I talked before, what did we see earlier this year, right? 2 professional football coaches lost their jobs. Could you imagine spending your whole life trying to get a job and finally getting your dream job, only to realize that some mistake you made or something very inappropriate you did is now costing you your livelihood and your career, right? So that's kind of some of the examples I just wanted to use. There's the whole range of careers have been affected by something that has been done by the internet. I've seen it in job interviews. You do a quick search on the internet, check out social media, and you can see, is this the right person that we want either getting into our college, our university, or getting a job and being trusted with some responsibilities. Background checks, super easy. And you don't have to pay for most simple background checks. Simply plugging in a name and can tell you a lot of information about someone's past. So always use caution, and that's my goal, or my goal and the point of this is to just be careful of what you're posting today, because your future may be affected about what's out there.
De nuevo, publicar hoy y tu futuro. Aquí damos ejemplos sobre unos coaches de fútbol americano que han perdido su trabajo por cosas que han hecho en el pasado, que son inapropiadas, que los han afectado ahorita o que los afectan en su futuro. Siempre es algo que de pensar o de enseñarle a sus hijos que si se están tomando fotos o si están haciendo de nuevo cosas inapropiadas, qué son cosas de publicar, qué son cosas de tomar fotos, de nuevo, cosas de ser conscientes.
Then we talk about cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is bullying just using electronic devices. It has resulted in harm to students across the nation, across the world, where constant harassment and bullying occurs. So what we need to do about it is be aware of it. So as parents, we have to encourage our children not to be involved in cyberbullying and stand up for what is right. And if they are being bullied, it needs to be addressed. Now, sometimes it can be simple addressing it with other parents. Sometimes it involves getting the school involved, and sometimes it involves getting law enforcement involved. But cyberbullying is illegal. And I attached the statutes from the Illinois compiled statutes of what harassment through electronic communications means. Essentially, it's cyberbullying. So I'll stop there on this slide.
Okay. Aquí puede ver la definición de ciberacoso, que es algo ilegal. De nuevo, es algo que los estudiantes o nadie lo debe de estar haciendo. Siempre tienen derechos de, si es algo que quieren, si está pasando el acoso, puede hablar con los papás de la otra persona, o involucrar a la escuela, a los administradores, o también tienen el derecho de hablar con oficiales de la ley.
Couple other things too, cyber stalking laws and false personation. We've seen cases where someone will take real photos of someone and put it up on the internet pretending to be that person. That's where it comes down to false personation. It's basically making a fake account of somebody, and it falls into bullying and it's harassment. So freedom of speech is one thing, harassment is another thing. We have to be able to understand the difference, that the effects that it has on our children. So again, talking to our children about bullying and cyberbullying is a huge thing. It's and very important for their well-being. And sometimes there's easy ways of seeing it when there's changes to their personality or changes to their grades and a few other ways. And we want to make sure we're talking to them and seeing what is going on and why these changes are happening. Again, if it's something that your children are doing and you stumble upon and find out the knowledge, have a conversation with them, speak to them and explain to them the ramifications of cyberbullying and how we can address it and how we can fix it. Same thing, if they are victims of any sort of bullying, we need to be aware of it and then take the steps to stop it.
Okay, de nuevo un resumen sobre lo que acaba de hablar, pero les voy a dar la información importantes son las leyes de acoso cibernético, es el acoso agresivo, si es el hijo o la hija de usted que lo está causando, hablar con ellos sobre las disciplinas o las cosas que pueden pasar si es la persona que lo está haciendo, pero también siempre mirar el comportamiento de nuestros hijos, si están cambiando ellos su personalidad, si están cambiando sus grados, a lo mejor les está pasando el bullying a ellos. Siempre es importante hablar con ellos también, conocer el comportamiento de ellos y hablar con ellos sobre, de nuevo, las cosas que pueden pasar. Y de nuevo, no es para asustarlos, sino para educarlos.
Sextortion is another topic that I want to talk about really quick. When we talk about sexting and our juveniles in middle school and so forth, high school, it's basically when someone sends out a photo of themselves and of a sexual nature, and then it is used to basically blackmail them or extort them for more. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is the national center who took on exploitation of our children, and they are the clearinghouse that disseminates information down to the state level. And what they do is they work with many companies because of laws that are out there, but they take information, photos that are shared because through servers that some people don't realize that most online applications we use have some sort of server. Things get flagged, information gets shared with law enforcement, and then it's looked at either potentially a child porn or some sort of situation like that. So when if your child approaches it and says they made a mistake, sent out something they thought was to a friend, and now someone on the other end of the internet is asking for more photos and they're embarrassed, it needs to immediately be reported to law enforcement, and we need to get in front of it and we can start figuring out. It's easy and difficult to do things secretly on the internet, and that probably sounds very confusing, right? We have a lot of resources to investigate cases, and a lot of people make mistakes and do some things online, and we're just we want to get in front of them before it gets too crazy. So if mistakes are made, your children made a poor decision, tell them they can always talk to you and give you the information so that we can address it in the appropriate way.
La palabra la sextorsión describe un delito que ocurre en línea cuando un adulto convence a una persona menor de 18 años de edad para que comparta imágenes sexuales o realice actos sexuales en una cámara web. Un niño o una niña, un joven puede mandar una foto inapropiada a una de a un amigo o una amiga, pero luego después un adulto puede agarrar esa foto y luego comunicar con ese joven y decirle, amenazar que va a compartir esas fotografías para pedirle más. Y eso lo vemos mucho también en las redes sociales. O de nuevo, es también importante de hablar con nuestros hijos sobre las cosas que pueden pasar cuando mandan imágenes y siempre ser conscientes, pero también lo que acaba de decir es que también tienen el derecho de reportar esas cosas con los oficiales si pasaría.
And so obviously those are two topics that we never want to have to deal with our children. And I hope we never do. The reality is sometimes photos are shared and sent through schools, and schools are made aware of it, and then we get involved and it's like a virus. So, they're hard topics to speak to our children about, but unfortunately it is a reality of the world we live in right now. So some of the things we can do to help eliminate these things is some of the rules at home. Our guidelines that we put out: devices should not be taken to the children's room. So they shouldn't be charged in the room. When our children go to their bedrooms, they should be getting ready to go to bed and sleep and be well charged and ready to go for the next day. Because I guarantee our teachers and staff at schools appreciate well-rested children who are ready to learn with charged up Chromebooks, right? And it makes their job a lot easier for teaching. if devices, they should be charged in the parents' room or some sort of common space. And again, as parents, you are allowed to check your child's devices. They can check their devices. So I have it worded because this is a slide I use for students, but the parents are allowed to check devices, whether the child pays for that phone bill or not. Anyone under 18, the parent has the right to go through their devices and should know how to get into their devices. Students should not, and kids should not be given their parents a reason to not trust them, right? All social media sites should be shared, with parents. That's one way of helping they learn how to become an adult, right? They are maybe give a little bit more freedom. You give them a cell phone because they have some activities that they're doing, and you need them to be in contact with them, right? Well, with that comes trust, and as trust gets broken, then steps need to be taken to fix that. But parents, you can, as I said earlier, you can check their devices, see their usage of what devices they are using. There shouldn't be any hidden secrets or anything. You can ask them before you even talk to them, before you check their phones, like, what are you doing on your phone? What do you use it for? That type of thing. And see if they're not giving any reason to not trust them, then you give them more trust and more opportunities to use the devices.
Okay, thank you so much. So, de nuevo, lo que acabamos de hablar son cosas que esperamos que nunca nos pasaría nunca queremos que les pasaría a ustedes, a sus hijos, a nuestros hijos, nuestras familias. Ahora vamos a hablar sobre las reglas en casa. La tecnología no se debe llevar a su cuarto. Cargue la tecnología en los cuartos de los padres en un espacio común. Los padres pueden revisar la tecnología o los dispositivos. Tienen derechos como padres ustedes revisar, de nuevo hablar con ellos sobre cuáles son las redes sociales que tienen, cuáles son las contraseñas, cosas así. Y todos los sitios de redes sociales deben compartirse con los padres también.
Every so often, we are required to intervene, and people need to make a police report. So just some of the things that I want to share with you is how to really help us when we make a police report, because not all law enforcement are educated and informed on every single law that's out there, and they might need a little assistance. So when everything is kind of handed to them in a package, it makes it a lot easier and less frustration for you. So when you see something online, if your child receives something from an anonymous source or from something inappropriate, you can do screenshots, and you can learn how to do screenshots. They're very simple to do. If you can find out the user ID of the person who either sent the information or is harassing, type out or write out kind of what happens in your own words, and then you call your local police department, or you can go into the police station. So taking that information, whether it's on a thumb drive or print it out and everything, and say it helps start the process and start the investigation to figure out and quickly get ahead of things. We have legal ways, the appropriate way of getting the information then from the other end or from the appropriate social media site, etc. There is with the internet, which is an awesome tool. There are great ways of helping the customers that those social media sites serve, and with the right way, following the laws, we are able to get some of that information and help investigate our cases.
De nuevo, pueden hacer un informe policial, tomar capturas de la pantalla de las cosas que están pasando, obtenga la ID de usuario de esa persona con quien están hablando o comunicando, escriba lo que sucedió, porque de parte del departamento de policía ya después ellos pueden investigar un poquito más sobre, con el nombre, con el usuario de ID. Y de nuevo, puede llamar al departamento de policía local o vaya a la estación de policía también.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about too, real quick, and there is sometimes parents want to know about monitoring software, some ways of being alerted that what's happening on their child's devices, and definitely school devices have software built in that they can be monitoring what child's doing with their school devices. So definitely should not be using it for any inappropriate means. But software like Bark, B-A-R-K, it's a tool that you can look into, and you can and tell your child you're putting that on that application on their devices as a monitoring device. It's a way of, it'll pick up whether it's keywords that are used. So if they're feeling sad or some sort of mental health issue where they may be looking at means of hurting themselves, or illegal things that of people trying to harass them or ask for inappropriate pictures, etc. My contact information is right here, my email and my desk phone number at work. I am more than happy to follow up. If you have any questions, email is the best way to get a hold of me, because as everybody else is, we have a lot to do. But I have a great rapport with the staff here at the school, so feel free to reach out through those channels as well. But again, if there's anything that I can do to help and even come speaking to you and your child, I'm more than happy to put that out there.
Thank you so much. De nuevo, nada más como un resumen lo que acaba de hablar, es muchas gracias por atender esa presentación, pero dio un ejemplo de siempre recordar y hablar con los estudiantes. De nuevo, es un tema o son temas que a lo mejor son difíciles para hablar, pero es la realidad en donde cual vivimos ahorita, y es importante información de nuevo para educarlos a ustedes, pero también para tener esa relación con nuestros hijos. Una aplicación que nos acaba de hablar también es Bark, que es la B-A-R-I-K de kilo. Es una aplicación que pueden poner en los dispositivos o tecnología de sus estudiantes, donde pueden también agarrar palabras. Por ejemplo, si los estudiantes se sienten deprimidos, ustedes también tienen el derecho de ver si esa palabra está escrita en la tecnología, en el celular de sus hijos, en la tableta, o a veces cuando está pasando el bullying o el acoso, esa aplicación dio como un recurso que también podemos usar. La mejor manera de ponerse en comunicación con él es por correo electrónico, pero también ahí está el número de su oficina si tienen cualquier pregunta para él o necesitan más información.
All right, so I'll jump in here. So, first of all, I think Mr. Foy and Mr. Hanson just gave just a lot of good information. I think above all here, I think, the overarching lesson is just to be active, actively, change your passwords and and be cautious of what you see online, but also be active with your child too. And really just don't assume anything. From the school side, what I've seen in the dean's department is, oh yeah, my son or my daughter's sleeping in bed right now. The door's shut, the lights off. In all actuality, though, they might be up till 2 or 3 in the morning on social media, talking with their friends, getting into drama, sending stuff to people that they shouldn't be sending it to, and it only takes a split second for that to be sent to 1,000 different friends. So just to be active with your child and ask questions. Unfortunately, he's got to get in their business too, to help keep them safe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson. También de nuevo, son importantes temas que acaban de dar nuestros dos presentadores sobre dispositivos, la tecnología, contraseñas, bullying, acoso, cosas así. Algo que acaba de hablar el señor Peterson es que a veces lo que vemos en las escuelas es que los estudiantes dicen que se van a dormir. Los papás piensan que está en su cuarto, tienen las luces apagadas, está durmiendo, pero en realidad están en la tecnología, y ahí es cuando empieza, puede pasar bullying o se están mandando fotos, cosas así. Es cuando son las situaciones que se lo mandan a una persona esa noche y luego ya después va y más estudiantes tienen esa información el siguiente día. De nuevo, importantes temas, importante contenido para hablar entre familias. Pero muchas gracias por atender, y aquí si puede tomar también una foto con su teléfono ahorita, los va a mandar a un enlace para una encuesta corta que es de 3 preguntas sobre esta presentación, sus comentarios, sus urgencias, si pueden beneficiar esta presentación también.
So, I just want to, thank our viewers as well, Miss Magallanes and Miss Mendoza. Thank you for the kind words. We have a wealth of information, and I hope you guys are able to pick some things up from that. But, at this time, if anybody has any questions for either Mr. Foy, Mr. Hansen, or myself, please put that in the chat box now.
Muchas gracias a todos por atender de nuevo nuestra Universidad de Padres. Esto lo hacemos para brindarle a ustedes las oportunidades a nuestros papás para educarlos, para que sepan diferente información que les está afectando a nuestras familias, a nuestros estudiantes. Muchas gracias a la persona Magallanes por sus comentarios, y a Araceli, que es la presidenta de nuestra comité de padres bilingües también, que nos dijo muchas gracias por toda la información, siempre es muy útil para nosotros. I just wanted to share, translate the comments that we did receive from the parents. One of them says, thank you. This information is really good to know. And the second one is from RBPAC president as well. Thank you so much for all of the information. All of this information is always very useful for all of us.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, but if anybody has any questions at this time, you can put that in the Q&A box there at the bottom of your screen.
Pero si tienen preguntas, los pueden poner en el chat ahorita, o comentarios. Es un espacio abierto. De nuevo, si hay cosas que les quieren preguntar a nuestros presentadores, o al subdirector, el señor Peterson, también.
May I just interject just for a moment? If there are any questions, we really appreciate if anybody would fill out our short survey. There's a QR code you could scan, or just type in this shortened URL. If you do not do it right now, it's okay, because when we complete this, the webinar will redirect you to our survey. It's 2 questions, very simple, and just to make sure that we get the feedback from all of our attendees.
Lo que acaba de hablar el señor Hansen es, tenemos nuestra encuesta corta. Puede tomarle una foto ahí que lo va a directar a otro sitio web. De nuevo, son 3 preguntas, y eso es para que nosotros como un distrito podamos saber si hay cosas que quieren saber más, o si eso fue beneficial o útil para ustedes. Y también cuando terminamos con esta presentación, los va a directar a ustedes a ir a ese enlace también para la encuesta corta, que solo es 3 preguntas.
But besides that, I see no questions right now. If you do, though, we can always reach out to us, the school, whomever. But at this time, I just want to thank Mr. Foy, Mr. Hansen, and Miss Carrera here for spending their evening with us, and giving some of that knowledge away, because knowledge is power, and in this day and age here, it's something that we definitely need to be aware of as parents, but also just technology itself as it evolves here. We just need to be on par here, so we can kind of protect ourselves. But at this point, though, I think that ends our Parent University presentation for tonight. Thank you, viewers, for sticking with us. I know we went a little late, but I hope this helps all of you, and I hope it helps to educate your children here down the road to avoid any of these issues moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Muchas gracias a todos por atender.
Thank you.